Oh my god! Act 6! Wow! Compensation potentially in the future, not to mention attack values are going to go down, the Cavalier Difficulty being announced, and when future end-game content is coming to the game. This is going to be an extensive video. There's probably going to be time codes, but there's so much to go over, and as well other extra bits of information that I've included in this that maybe won't be covered by other people. But we'll try and get to as much stuff as possible as my hair flops around the place with excitement. Also in this video, we're going to be jumping between in-game stuff to illustrate points, and as well making sure to make the point Kabam still want to hear from you. They still want feedback as to what you think about some of the things that are going to change, because that communication still needs to be there. And as well, obviously Kabam need to understand where they may be wrong on some of the things, and as well maybe that the players need to be considered as well. So that will probably be a forum post on the forum for you to obviously respond back, as they did with the prelude, which they did a week ago. The post kicks off with an understanding statement and basically knowing where Kabam have gone with the game, maybe at the same time not really admitting to, but where they've gone wrong with the game from a point of identifying, well, the usefulness of champions, the difficult of content, the specific nature of having to achieve certain champions to get through said content, and basically understanding they need to change that way of thinking. And when talking about the idea of future and as well book 2 and what that was meant to achieve, it didn't achieve what they wanted to see, and that again goes down to the specific nature of overpowering of attack values, as well as so specific or incredibly just mind-numbingly diverse that those lanes were. The kind of pain points that were created as a result of this book 2 beta was just all kinds of wrong. So where Kabam go with future content was just not a good idea. But here's the thing, right? We've talked about where Kabam have been, what they've learned. We need to find out where they're going. Next up, and let's face it, back issues, variants, whatever you want to call them, have been some of the most enjoyable content, which Kabam are learning now that this is something they should push. And that's the thing, this year we might even see 2 more variants, which would be good, and as well ongoing to see more of them would be absolutely amazing. Especially talking about the way that they have to be slightly different for whatever future content is put in, obviously to include and kind of ramp up the potency of some of these kind of like duff old champions, but also making sure that variants still remain that fun and enjoyable content that a lot of us players really look forward to when Kabam release them. As a lot of us know, variants will give the potency to one specific, 2 specific, or maybe 3 specific champions, or maybe a class or a hashtag, the increased buffs that they deserve, obviously to go like right where they can be used a lot more, like Sentinel, like XL champions, like maybe taking Joe Fixit, King Groot, and such others in various different variants. And that is something of a narrative that needs to be pushed, and something you'll probably find in the champions section, which is a few days away. I'm not quite sure on the date. I want to say it's like the 27th of June. We find out more about how champions are going to be changed and improved going forward, especially from a potency and usability point of view. Like it could even be a case that I'll be using my good old King Groot, who by the way I hope could be a future buff champion. So that would be amazing if that would be the case. But yeah, like the fact is, seeing all these kind of like not really usable champions and finding a new potency, even in variants, but also out of variants in other content, like maybe something in Act 6 or maybe even Book 2 of the future, could be a real fun thing to look forward to when a lot of these changes do go in. And time is, and dates and when is going to be a key factor, and something that we'll be coming back to later on in this video. Now here's the changes that massively enticed me, and as well really kind of like locked me into, I think I'm going to really enjoy changes to Act 6. And this was number 1, the champion boss fight. Very key changes. Damage taken from Nullify in the main event phase will be reduced from 10% to 2%. Block penetration for the champion will reduce by 50%. The dexterity requirements in his final phase will be reduced from 5 to 3. Removing no retreat buff node, that is the key thing. That indeed is fantastic news. I'm really glad to learn that that is going to be a thing. There may be a case of looking into maybe some of the other nodes, but from a builds perspective and as well from a pain point perspective, that has, for me personally, solved a lot of problems. The no retreat side of things has been a frustration for a lot of players, and as well the compensation, which is something we'll talk about in a minute, has to be something that represents that, obviously for the extent of spend on this. But a lot of players obviously being very vocal on how this has been so much of a, well, stress, pain point, as I said, for a long time. But having those little improvements to kind of like feel that your block isn't being penetrated so much, because that was one of the key issues I experienced with this fight. Not to mention the fact that trying to ping off that dexterity sometimes was not happening. And if that's not happening, then that obviously creates more of an issue for being under no retreat, and as well getting that prowess needed. So 3 prowess to then get down the enemy, man, that's a good improvement. Something does need to be looked into with some of the other ones leading up to it, but I think that's at players' discretion to really point out, you know, could they take or leave aspect of death? Could they take or leave prove yourself? Could they take or leave something else? And that'll be the thing, whether or not it would be a nice idea to take down some of these other nodes as well that link into it. But I'll leave that up to people to kind of have their feedback to Kabam on the matter. But here's the thing, guys, it doesn't stop there. Kabam are making more changes to attack values, which, again, I'm like really surprised to see this going so extensive as it is, but it needs to be done, especially with a lot of the feedback, and as well for players trying to get up to this point, and as well obviously for future stability and basically the happiness of a player. Basically looking here saying the attack values for the path and champions in Act 6 Chapter 4 will be reduced by 40 to 60%, dropping them from 15k on average closer to around 5 to 9k on average, with some even lower. So like that's the thing, guys, with whether or not they're changing the things with nodes, which obviously doesn't look like they're changing. Maybe they're making the fights and the champions going up against much more weaker, so therefore you overpower or you just kind of like just smash them down as a result of champion pair ups and synergies. That may be something that looks like this is how it's coming across. And that's the thing, it looks like it's going to stretch into 6.3 as well. Like 6.3 final bosses will be scaled down from that top value accordingly, which could be something like, again, a huge drop with an average, it said like dropping them 22k on average to 6.5k to 10k. So again, substantial drops, not with the Grandmaster it seems though. And obviously this will be so extensive and so well received because it does make these kind of like fights that are really annoying. From this fight here in the Captain America fight of 6.3, although this isn't the most extensively horrible fight, but well, apart from the destructive feedback and a few other things as well, it's still a case that, you know, this would be great to see this reduced down as well. Obviously for those players that are trying to like get to these points in their MCOC career, could feel that this is something that the developer have gone, look, here's the thing, your rank 5 stars, even though they might be like less or more subpar, could actually get through this content. And the same thing obviously with 6.4, which is just such a frustration at times. You feel that these champions are more powerful than the content they're going up against. But here's the thing, here's the question that I had, which I didn't think was being answered up until reading this point, and it is talking about pain points. And obviously the pain points being with what has been created. And obviously they even like admit to here, Kabam have said that Act 6 and taking aim at our most erroneous, I can't even say this properly, encounters and returning their buff profiles to broaden options for viable counters. So obviously the way that the buffs, nodes, whatever you want to call them, the way they're created as to the pain points this creates. And also as well obviously having those specific champions available to take on said content. And so obviously in some cases Kabam haven't even made the champions to take in some of those double noded type of encounters, which literally are just the most frustrating bits of content Kabam have put in. So obviously is understanding what they've done, what they can change in the future to make those buffs, nodes, whatever you want to call them, more accessibly smackdownable, if that's even a concept, but you know, just take them down. Now there's two crucial things to take away from this. Number one being the fact of, well, look, what's going to happen when it comes to the release of this Act 6 stuff? And also, will there be any compensation? Well, there's two sort of thumbs up from this. First, number one thumb up is that we're likely to see in 28.0 the updated Act 6 champion boss fight. That is the first key date, but anything else we might have to wait a little bit longer for it. And the other thing, compensation, is we will have to wait longer for that as well. So yeah guys, here's the thing, the good news and bad news situation. So the bad news, starting off with first, is that the champion boss fight, all those lovely things, the no retreat being removed, the dexterity triggering prowess being 3 instead of 5, as well the values when it comes to block penetration and several other values changes, is specifically in this fight only, is going to be in August 2020. That is when you're going to see this particular change, and compensation apparently is going to be dealt with separately, but we're going to hear about it soon, which, man, I'm pretty excited about. I've just recently completed Act 6, so yeah, I mean, it'd be great to see what's on offer from this when it is delivered out, or it's talked about in the coming weeks and months, so watch this space. Here's the point that kind of gives me a little bit of, well, I'm not quite sure about the future vibe. So obviously Kabam is saying in the statement that they want to see players that do well against content, whether or not that's, as they say here, outwitting a challenging champion, overcoming a tough buff node, are accomplishments that deserve celebration. This is the thing about path-based rewards being added in more in order to fill the gap between completion and exploration. I get that. Act 6 has seen that. Tier 2 alpha fragments were in that. And that's the thing, obviously, will be great to see more of. It says here, fights will be designed to reward optimal play rather than punish suboptimal play. So I don't know whether or not that's a case of going, right, well, playing well and, you know, will there be factors that kind of don't go well for your optimal play? There's much more to this, I think, that meets the eye that I need to learn a little bit more from Kabam on. And there's so much to take into consideration when it comes to the future of the game. But Kabam seemed to identify a lot of things correctly, from player investments right the way through to empowering players with choice, and even rolling out something with, you know, inspired by Incursions, where you get to swap out champions, a champion swapping thing. So imagine you get to like the final boss, you get to a certain point and you're able to swap out certain champions, going, okay, well, this first point is going to be difficult for me to get through, but partway through I can swap to have a certain other champion. Or maybe I need something for a synergy to take me through something, like the Heimdall synergy taking me through to one part, and then it's a case you then swap over, take out Heimdall to put in something that is going to be more powerful, but maybe synergize a lot better with other things. So those are, again, things to consider that Kabam have put in that seem to be quite exciting and interesting. As well, the energy cost to complete path in Book 2 will not exceed 70 energy, which is good. And as well, lots of other things like story quests will feature multiple final bosses for more choice and less repetition. So I guess that kind of lives up. But I don't know if that will be good. Well, if it plays into the incursion side of things, and partway through you can change out, which I guess is good. But if you practice against one certain enemy champion, and I don't know, I think there will be a divided opinion on that particular matter. But it's cool to spice things up now and again. Which is amazing because it creates some kind of variation in this type of content, this kind of endgame content, which, look, at the moment we all know it. The sluggery of it, the disappointment of it, the suppression based on roster availability is just so mind-numbing. So it is good to know that there are some really kind of wacky, far out and as well, not even considered changes, or maybe people have had these ideas and Kabam have gone, yeah, great idea, we'll kind of look to it and put it in. So that does show some positivity for the future of endgame and story mode content. And there's still yet more to unpack, especially from reducing player mental loads, which looks into obviously the stress point of having fights where there's just loads of buffs on the enemy, and it's just a case of like you have to have the one specific champion or units man or one of the respective boosts that you need. Man, there's just so much of a pain point, but it's good to know that this is something identified by Kabam, and obviously the feedback that was given by the players on the matter. But as well, the way that champion boss fights are put in are not like it's a case of going, look, the champion boss fight, which as we know is a bit scuffy, it's not exactly pleasant, and as well, you know, there's other ones like the Beardo fight with the fact that it's just got all those kind of littered of nodes, which don't really give you any kind of enjoyment. And yeah, okay, the Grandmaster fight is fun. There's a few nodes I could really kind of take off that champion to be more of a fair fight, but at the end of the day, the way that is actually built aids more of a fun experience for those fighting off against it. And here's the thing, Kabam understand that, saying that obviously the final bosses are being designed as standalone experience that will rely less on niche RPG counters and hard skill requirements. Having multiple final bosses per quest will allow us to scale their difficulty and vary their challenges to keep the quest fresh for replays. Finishing off right at the bottom here, saying that it's December 2020 when it's likely to see Book 2 Act 1 Chapter 1. Now obviously I can understand there's going to be some people disappointed with that particular announcement, because I can imagine there's a lot of people that would want to get on with grinding this out. Maybe they could wait until August, maybe September time. But for me personally, and I know for a lot of players that have recently become Cavalier, obviously for myself, I need to go back and 100% Act 6. But knowing that there's going to be substantial changes to things like attack values, and as well when it comes to that champion boss fight of 6.2, that makes me at least think that this is going to be a better time to wait and see what happens. But obviously for those that have 100%ed everything, then that is going to be the issue for you, and that's where Kabam are going to get you covered in future weeks and months, and especially leading into this particular new act or new book that we're going to be seeing. But I'd like to know where Kabam are going to be putting in this new kind of champion boss changes, or boss changes to be exact. When it comes to book 2 and changing bosses around willy-nilly, yes, I like the idea of variety, but at the same time the issue will be when you've trained on one particular boss interaction, like say, first time it's going to be something that's easy to avoid from an SP1, like Psylocke for example. But then the second time it's going to be more difficult SP1 evading, which is going to be the likes of Doctor Doom for example, or anything with a projectile like Venom, Agent Venom to be exact. So imagine that, changing and strategizing differently, which yes, it does create fun and variety, but at the same time creates another pain point for an interaction point of view. And how random will these things be? Will there be able to be guides created by people on this? You know, those are the things as well. Are they going to be staple, always the same? Or will they be ever changing? That'll be key things to find out. And now for the moment you've all waited for. The Cavalier difficulty is coming to the game. Now there's going to be a light side event added into it before we see the full minutiae of a full event. But here's the thing. Even Kabam Frenchy alludes to the fact that if you have recently become Cavalier, Cavalier difficulty may not be the event that you think it's going to be. However, though, they are adding in easy paths, so you'll at least be able to do the completion or get up to the boss before the boss completely, slaps your face a bit. Now, I remember the first ever time I did Uncollected, and it was a case, I think I only got to the first 2 chapters before even making the decision to go, do you know what, my 4 stars at rank 5 were not even strong enough to take on this content at the time. And that again was down to things like attack values and also maybe the potency of certain champions to go up against the content. Now flash forward to now, and it's a case like any rank 5-star can just kind of like smash through a lot of this stuff. Even a rank 3 6-star can absolutely decimate it. So that's the thing, when it comes to this content, for the first time, of those that maybe have just achieved the title of Cavalier may not even be able to get as far as maybe they think. But who knows with this? Kabam may have an idea that they go, right, well, if they're decreasing the values when it comes to Act 6.1, and maybe that's the comparing nature to this, but at the same time, they've even alluded to wanting to make this not similar to Act 6.4 Grandmaster, but at least at a point where it's on scale from a difficulty point of view for very end game players that maybe are in like, well, I don't know, so top alliances, platinum in Alliance War, have some skill that maybe they're just all about the intercepts and just don't really take much into the block. Those are the key things still yet to find out. So that's something to kind of look forward to, but at the same time, understanding how this is going to be will be, I think, with the side quest, which is going to be in next month. And here's the thing here, even in this paragraph, once your roster is wider and your skills sharper, you will be able to challenge yourself by attempting the exploration. Exploring the Cavalier difficulty would require either a good amount of skill, a wide range of ranked up champions, or a lot of power. But if you succeed, those tier 5 class catalyst fragments will be yours. Well, that is the paywall smashed down when it comes to like trying to get this stuff And obviously that is going to be a key thing. There's going to be more options for you to be free to play to a degree. But the thing is, when it comes to the difficulty scaling of this is going to be the key thing. And how available will this stuff be? Like if you have a 565 5-star, is that going to be weak for this content? Is it going to be a case that, you know, eating a couple into the block, more parries than normal? Is there going to be a lot of damage, like high attack values that kind of penetrate a lot of the blocks, so therefore you're kind of ticking a good amount of damage in the parry? Is it a case just intercept all the way, like no intercepts, and like just a case of like quake and bake with this stuff? What is going to be the key things we're still yet to find out, so I'll wait before reserving judgment on this. But it's good to see tier 5 class catalyst being something you can get from doing this game mode. And here's some key dates for you to look at. So first and foremost, Canadian difficulty, which is the side quest for next month. And then the August month is legendary difficulty side quest, which basically I think is going to be your Cavalier difficulty, or your first taste of what it's going to be like, with a full release in September for this particular event quest. So look out for then. Also, just quickly, it looks like there's going to be massive changes to the way that the acts are put together, and as well putting things like the path rewards. But as well, there's going to be changes that will basically mean that if you go back to Act 1 or Act 2, for example, you'll see certain paths you may have not done, with a bigger change obviously coming to these acts in the future. So yeah, look out for something here like small energy refills and champion boosts. So yeah, I mean, that's an interesting, it's a weird one, but hey, it's a thing. Also, I just want to take a moment to just say, if you're watching this part of the video, you haven't skipped a lot of it and time codes and stuff like that, you haven't clicked on time codes, then I just want to say you're the greatest of all time for supporting this channel. Like, you just don't understand the just amazing support for somebody to start watching this video from the beginning and also watching it way through. You're amazing. And that's the thing, because there's so much time and effort will go into this kind of like cut and edit, because at the moment the raw edit for this, or the raw record, is 1 hour. Now I've probably condensed this down. Fingers crossed it's going to be at least watchable at like 20 minutes long, but you just don't know. So there's going to be a lot of time and effort spent chopping this up, because I want it to be obviously enjoyable, watchable, readable at the same time. So if you're watching this and you've watched from start to finish and picked up on this little section here, you are the greatest of all time, and I appreciate you from watching from start to finish. But let's continue on. Also, Kabam do say about the way that compensation is looked into, especially when it comes to things like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, etc. Because it's all based on time, and time it's taken to accumulate records of information. So the reason they don't compensate, say, players like myself, who's been playing for well over 5 years, for stuff that's in Act 1, Act 2 and Act 3, is the time it would take to collect all that data would largely be so underproductive in different areas. So I'm kind of chill with that, as I've always kind of said, and as well said to Kabam Frenchie, was that I'm fine with Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and potentially, and yeah, I'm fine with Act 4. It's just if they change anything and don't compensate for stuff for Act 5 or Act 6, that is where I would kind of feel like that is something that needed to be dealt with, especially if you felt that, you know, you put so much effort into these 2 acts here, which I felt I put a lot of effort into Act 5 at the time with the roster that I had. Very different case of affairs now with a lot of the new champions coming in. But there you go, that's just something that I feel personally on that particular mark. Here's another exciting bit of news. I know that some people won't really be too interested, but I'm looking forward to this. And that is changing with the soundtrack from battle music, boss music, quest exploration, champion selection. Man, it's going to be great to see a lot of things that with the backing tracks and the music and the kind of experience being ultimately changed, that is going to be, you know, exciting. So I'm well up for this, and we'll largely see this in book 2, I believe, and maybe some other things down the line. Also, it looks like Kabam are giving us yet more content with the Summer Smackdown. So you'll freely unlock a new boss rush each week for 5 weeks. Completing each week grants you an unlock item required to participate in the final week, the Omega Quest, which combines the previous 5-week bosses for the ultimate challenge. Oh great. This content will be available in all of our usual difficulties. Let us know what you think of the format when it comes your way in July. Man, it's going to be busy. And the final thing that looks like it's coming our way is a new type of like endgame content, which is called, it's got a working title of Summer of Pain, which does have a nod to seating in a Mexican hotel room. But here's the thing, like, this is going to be just based on all you need is your skill, all your roster, and all your bravery. As well, it's obviously talking about maybe there's a bit more to this that meets the eye. And yeah, like this will probably be the most end game content out there, because obviously they say Abyss of Legends might be a little bit more of a kind of a, well, easygoing thing than it was meant to be. And there we have it. That has been the deep dive from myself, and as well with a few little opinions here and there about the state of this kind of stuff. I'm not quite sure how long this video is going to be. I've edited it as best I can. I have put time codes as best I can. Obviously, there will be loads to kind of like unpack with this, but as well, you're not alone with kind of going, wow, that's a big load of stuff. And as well, we'll look to on Thursday talk about alliance-based things. So it's going to be a crazy old time. But the fact is, this looks really positive. For me personally, where I'm at the game at the moment is I'm just looking towards Act 6 as my next thing to kind of like take down completely. And yeah, okay, there's other stuff like Labyrinth of Legends, Abyss of Legends, things like that. But the fact is, Act 6 is the thing I'm more interested in. And that champion boss fight change was probably one of the biggest things I was looking forward to. And as well, the extent of the node changes, attack values, and various different things when it comes to Act 6. And as well, maybe for the future of where my pain points will be as a player from, you know, my skill level right the way through to what roster I have and how much Kabam have understood that they need to change the way that they've been doing things up to this point. So yeah, it does. There's a lot of positive to take home. A few things that I'm still apprehensive about and still need to say, like, you know, find out what is actually going on with this. But I think a book 2 Act 1 Chapter 1 beta at a later date will be a good thing to see to kind of like put my my kind of like anxiousness at rest. But here's the thing, you know, when it comes to the Cavalier difficulty, again, that will be something as well to find out where Kabam are going with that. Will there be more and increased pain points with it as well, and how this factors into roster availability, which obviously is undermined with things like Alliance Quest and Alliance Wars as well. But we'll see what happens for the future, but still, this looks pretty positive. And also make sure to go to the forum to cast your say on some of the things said, because Kabam do want to find out your feedback on this stuff so they can obviously understand what they need to do for the future as well. Also check out some other content over here. Check out some content down there. I'll see you later on for the live stream. See you in the next one. Bye for now.